Good day. Going into a job interview, chances are you've also been through lists of the most commonly asked types of questions you can expect. And I thought, what if we do something slightly different? Today in the science, we could go through a list of 10 interview questions you'd least expect to get asked in job interviews. Question number 1. What's the one project you're least proud of? Okay, so this interview question is similar to tell me about a time when you failed. It's just framed counterintuitively, the element of surprise. So you'd want to pick your best failure story that you prepared for a job interview and then focus on some interesting learnings that you took from it, right? Second example, can you share a story that speaks to who you are from a values perspective? Okay, so which value is the most interesting to sell yourself on for the job that you're applying for? Right? For example, you can sell yourself on ownership, a time when you took something which was outside of your area of responsibility, but definitely in your company's best interest. Okay, but which value do you think would be the most appropriate to sell yourself on? And usually, that's often highlighted in your best story. Okay. Question number 3. What critical feedback do you most often receive? Okay, so what's the point of this interview question? The point of this question is tell me about the time when you received the critical feedback from your manager or from your peer. Okay, and how did you resolve that situation? Your interpersonal skills. Maybe you took some data, maybe you communicated efficiently, maybe a combination of both ideally. But what I'd advise you would be to stay away from a critical piece of feedback or something you did not like within the company, right? So try to keep it within your subject area of expertise, right? Example number 4. Give me an example of a time that you lost your temper. Tell me what happened and what was the outcome. Okay, so a time when you lost your temper. Okay, so this is the same as asking you, tell me about a tense or stressful situation in which you maintain your composure and eventually delivered well on your promises. Okay, so even this question might sound as if it's a failure story. Give an example when you lost your temper. It's not, I wouldn't recommend you put a failure story, but rather talk about a stressful situation in which you ultimately succeeded. Okay, a stressful situation. This may mean different things to different types of roles, right? Question number 5. Describe a time when you found a simple solution to a complex problem. Okay, so the wording of this question makes it a bit more counterintuitive to answer, but usually, an interesting solution to a complex problem within your core area of expertise. A simple solution to a complex problem, you'd rather focus on the complex problem, because the simple solution, you would sell it as such, right? It could be through a deep dive and various other techniques, right? But notice that the way the question is framed is one such that it's making it slightly more counterintuitive to answer properly, right? Example number 6. Tell me about the time when you had to apologize to someone. Okay, so why would someone ask you this in a job interview? Well, they want to see how you grew from some experience. Tell me about the time when you failed at something, and ideally you apologize to your manager probably for that, or to whom it was, to whom you were responsible to achieve that goal for. But again, the key thing would be the learnings. If you understand the question, if you understand the behavior that they're most interested in, right? Example number 7. Tell me about the time when you were 75% through a project or a process and you were forced to pivot strategy in order to ensure its successful completion. Okay, this is a similar question to something on lines of tell me about the time when you got stuck midway through a project and had to pivot to ensure its successful completion. You simply got stuck midway to a project, right? A challenging delivery. Okay, a common mistake people do with this specific question, time when you're 75% of a project, is that they cannot think of a specific instance where they were exactly 75% of a project, right? That's not the main thing. You could be, halfway through a project, but the idea is that you must focus on example, showcasing your ability to pivot strategy in order to ensure delivery, right? So your ability to deliver something is what they're actually looking for in this interview question. Question number 8. Tell me about the time when you missed an obvious solution to a problem. Okay, so when you missed an obvious solution to a problem. Okay, so this question can get asked, for various reasons, such as, you exhibit a project where, you could sell yourself on this one with your ability to showcase your curiosity. For example, you missed an obvious solution to a problem. A server supposed to have a 5 milliseconds latency was having a 50 millisecond latency. And you tried to investigate as to why, and you did it extensively, or just to find out that it was the location of that server, instead of being in Australia, for which the abbreviation is AUS, it was located in Austria, AU, right? So it was halfway across the globe. So that's why the latency was, 10 times larger than expected, right? Example number 9. How do you make trade-offs between quality and deadlines? Okay, so trade-offs between quality and deadlines could also be between quality and cost. But the reason why they would ask you between quality and deadlines, usually because you want to showcase your high standards and your quality. You want to not just deliver something that's, so-so of questionable quality, but rather something of high quality, even though it might come across, a bit over the deadline that's, usually generally accepted. So it would be quality most of the time, right? And finally, number 10, a question that you will not hear often in job interviews because it's quite new. How do you use AI in your work? Okay, so how do you use AI in your work, to drive some benefit, for the purpose of delivering in your job, to improving your productivity? This would be the keyword that you'd want to stick to when it comes to AI at work. All right, so for example, I used AI to brainstorm for some questions, or at least to compare the type of content I'd like to share. I share with you in this video with the type of content that AI recommends for 10 interview questions you'd least expect. And as you can see, the results are quite different, right? So I hope you found this useful as an interview exercise, and thank you very much for watching.